Well, you want to hear a better story? I went and picked up these jerseys from my buddy, Nicholas's jerseys.
Yeah.
And the girl goes, "Excuse me, have you got a alumni card, right?" And I go, "Pardon me? I need to see your alumni card." So the guy goes, "Don't you know who that is?" She goes, "No." So I go, "Okay." And then he goes, before she even can answer again, he goes, "Hey, you still sell a lot of Walby jerseys?" She goes, "Yeah, some old guy's jersey."
That's what she said to you? Oh, that's terrible.
And then I went like this, "Excuse me." And I said, "That's me." And then she kind of caught on. She said, "Oh, I'm so sorry." I go, "No, it's okay, man. Hey." She's younger. She's only like 23 years old. You know, She wasn't even born when I played last. So
sure,
pretty funny. Oh, made me laugh, man. A little touch of humility there. You know what I mean?
Well,
good.
Once they learn, nobody ever forgets.
Well, that's pretty funny though. Yeah. No, I had a good time. The last game was good too. The Saskatchewan game, even though they were very, very lucky they didn't get pass interference. I don't know how they didn't get pass interference on that one by the end zone. The guy basically ran over the receiver, and that was what's. But that was stupid. That was what's his name for not even challenging Craig Dickinson. Sometimes he does some crazy things.
Was that the Mike Edom play?
Right at the end. No, it was going against the
Bombers. Winnipeg. Yeah, okay.
And it was right near this end of the first half. And I was in that end zone. I'm like watching. I'm like, oh, that's pass interference. No call. I go, you got to be kidding me. I mean, we've got a couple breaks. The 2 ejections. We don't get ejected. I mean, there's a lot of different things.
Okay, ready to go?
Let's do it.
Let's get Game Day Winnipeg fired up. Darrin Bauming, the legendary Chris Walby, and a huge matchup here prior to the Blue Bombers' first bye of the 2021 season. Week 7, business trip to Edmonton, Chris, to take on the Trevor Harris-less Elks.
Oh, wow.
Midweek. Trevor Harris left practice early, has pain and discomfort in his neck. They're being cautious with him on the 6-game injured list. This is another team needing to go to their number 2 quarterback, but in Edmonton's case here, this is major news, Chris. Trevor Cornelius, a rookie to the CFL, 4 starts in the XFL in 2020. Head coach Jamie Elizondo was his OC with the Tampa Bay Vipers about a year and a half ago in their shortened season. But this wildly changes the dynamic of Edmonton's high-powered offense with 2 of the best receivers in the league against the number 1 defense, hands down, in the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. They got to do it without their quarterback.
Well, they're number 1. And the biggest thing you mentioned, DB, is the fact that, Trevor Harris pulled himself on a Wednesday. So Trevor Cornelius has only had a day and a half of practice. This is pregame today. So that's all the reps he's got. I watched his interview today talking about his, mental reps. He's always preparing. Coach Jamie Elizondo loves him because he coached him with the Tampa Bay Vipers. But having said that, I watched him, I watched his highlight reel. I went back to the Tampa Bay Vipers and watched the highlight reel on him.
What'd you see?
He has a cannon for an arm. I mean, he's 6'6", big, tall, strapping lad.
230 pounds, like big boy.
And he can run. And he's got it. Like I said, I was really blown away. He reminded me of a taller Jake Mayer from Calgary, the way he threw the ball right on the dime. And I know it's hard to compare, but I'm using that comparison just because it's 2 first-year quarterbacks.
Sure.
But as you say, first ever start, I think there's a blessing there that he's at home. Right. Now, I know that Edmonton is 0-3 at home. That's something they're trying to correct. And they got that whole thing with the pandemic kicking up again and the 4th wave in Edmonton. So now they're asking everybody's going to be double vaxxed, which is a smart move. But, I mean, it's going to cost – they really feel like they're going to lose a lot of attendance and, merchandise and sales. So, I mean, hopefully we can get this thing straightened out because they're a team already that's had a postponed game. And they got to I think they play in December or November or something. They got to make up a game against the Argos.
Right.
So, yeah, I'm looking forward to this game. I want to see what this Trevor Cornelius does. I know they got Dakota Prukop as a backup. He's had a little bit of experience, but I think the big thing is they have a good defense. The Eskimos are playing pretty dang good on defense, and that might be the saving grace for this team.
Absolutely. Chris, here's what I read about Trevor Cornelius, and I know you watched him. Obviously, he has the physical tools. You wouldn't be playing pro football if you didn't have it. You're 6'5" and 232 pounds. So, undrafted out of Oklahoma State, Blue Bombers' third-string quarterback, Drew Brown, lost the starting job or lost out on the competition for the starting job with the Oklahoma State Cowboys back in 2018. Cornelius was successful in college, won a lot of games, helped that Cowboys team really move into the upper echelon of the top offenses in NCAA Division I. Canadian Chuba Hubbard, the tailback, and he finished top 10 in 2018 in touchdowns and passing yards, did Taylor Cornelius. 2019, undrafted free agent signing of the Green Bay Packers. They cut him. He joins Mark Trestman and Jamie Elizondo with the Tampa Bay Vipers. He doesn't play the first game, but he comes in relief, and then he starts their next 4 games. He finishes 1-3. The one win came in his second or third game, 25-0, absolute dominant performance where he didn't have to throw the ball too much. They really ran it primarily. But in those in those 3 losses that Taylor Cornelius suffered as the starting quarterback of the Tampa Bay Vipers, with Jamie Elizondo as his OC, who's his head coach now at Edmonton, 3 times in those 3 losses, he threw a game-sealing interception late in the game in those losses. So is he a flawed quarterback? Is he somebody that maybe the pressure wears on him or that sort of thing? We're going to find out. You talk about trial by fire in the CFL. It's one thing to start a game in your first year, 12-man versus 11-man, yard off the ball for the opposing defense, waggle, all of these different things, the unlimited motion. But to do it against Willie Jefferson on one side, Jackson Jeffcoat on the other, Adam Bighill in the middle, a smart all-star caliber safety, and Brandon Alexander behind you. It's great that they have James Wilder Jr., a veteran tailback, and they'll run the football, no doubt try to establish the run, something most teams haven't been able to do this season against Winnipeg, maybe outside of Toronto. You got Darrell Walker, you got Greg Ellingson, you got great pieces around you, but boy, talk about a daunting first start in the CFL. And as you mentioned, mental reps is one thing. Knowing for an entire week you're starting and getting in all of those practices is another. Taylor Cornelius was not afforded that luxury.
No, he wasn't afforded that luxury. Now, the thing is, I mean, also, he's got an offensive line in front of him. Yes, they welcome back Sir Vincent Rogers, former most outstanding offensive lineman. Hasn't played for a long time. Then you got, Matt O'Donnell, the veteran at right guard, the 6'11" veteran. But you got Kyle Saxon sliding from guard to tackle. You got a new guy named Thomas Jack Kurtlaw playing at guard in his first ever game. This is an O-line that hasn't had the same group all year.
Right.
And we all know, because we're spoiled with the Bombers O-line, they've been together for almost 2 full years. They're one of the best O-lines, if not the best O-line in the CFL. Now you got a makeshift offensive line, albeit with Sir Vincent back, but now you got a makeshift line with an inexperienced quarterback. And you hit it. I think one of the things they have to do, and they will, I think they're just going to pound James Wilder Jr. all day. You said they only had the Bombers gave up some runs in Calgary. They gave up 139 yards rushing total against Saskatchewan. You
mean in 2 games? Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, they can run the ball. But that's why he gave 60 minutes. We talked about the Bombers. We'll talk about it more about the fact they're such a second half team. But
that was the thing. You talk about them giving up those runs to the Calgary Stampeders. Yeah. Kadeem Carey had 70 yards, I think, in the first half in that game in Winnipeg, and then nothing in the second, 13 yards, something like that. They absolutely shut him down. We should talk about this Blue Bombers team being a strong second half team. The offense seems to turn it on. We know Andrew Harris is kind of like, an engine. You get him revved up a little bit and he runs much better than he does a little bit colder. And the defense, do you remember the last time an offense even looked remotely dangerous against this Blue Bombers defense in the second half, in the latter parts of the third quarter and into the fourth? Because I don't.
I would say the last time that I saw a team that I thought might have potential was the Calgary Stampeders with rookie quarterback Jake Mayer. I thought he moved the ball effectively. I mean, that was a tight game. Remember, we had to kick the field goal to win that game. I thought that was about the only team. Against Saskatchewan, it's complete domination. When you think about this, the last 2 games against Saskatchewan, they haven't given up a point in the second half. This is a team that's only given up 3 total points in 6 fourth quarters. That's unheard of. They're the best defense they say since 1966. I was a 10-year-old boy, eating fudgicles at that time. So
me too.
I remember. I loved it. Well, you were probably still in Mama's belly because you're way younger than me. But no, I'm just impressed with this defense. And as you mentioned, I think with the changes they had, and I know they took a guy out last year that the Wesley. He was the left tackle the last game, and they played against Calgary when they had 7 sacks. He was horrible. I hate to do that as an old lineman, it's like a fraternity, but I got to tell you, I got to call a spade a spade. Well, this guy was just not very good.
Five sacks. Sorry to interrupt.
But having said that, watch the game though, DB. And this will be the one part I stick up for him. First off, I didn't think he played well at all. He took a couple holding penalties, got beat inside, got beat for a couple sacks. But then there was a couple times that I watched Trevor Harris hold on to the ball, wide open guy. He could have dumped it off to Wilder a couple of times, and he gets sacked. And he even admitted it. He played poorly. Even Jamie Elizondo, the head coach, said he's not happy with his game. But now they realize maybe he had a neck problem, whatever, maybe he was jarred a little bit. You never know, right? But I expect this kid, Taylor Cornelius, to get rid of the ball. They got to simplify the playbook as well. You can't go in. There's not going to go in there with a full catalog of plays. So it'll be interesting to see. Bonus, he did coach. He did play under Elizondo before. Negative, he hasn't had much practice time.
Well, and bonus is that Jamie Elizondo knows the quarterback, knows what to maybe keep in the playbook when he does, or if he does pare it down. That offensive line will be interesting. You mentioned James Wilder Jr. A power run game is going to be important. I was asked this week by CFL on TSN play-by-play man, the new play-by-play man, Dustin Nielsen, on his radio show on TSN radio in Edmonton. What's the secret to success against this Blue Bombers defense? Well, the only time Winnipeg was beat this season was in a back-to-back, and it was the second game against Toronto in Toronto. And what happened? DJ Foster, who, by the way, is becoming a star in this league. He can really do it all. He ran the ball all day long, off tackle, up the middle, sweeps to the outside. Every way he could get the ball, the Toronto could get the ball in DJ Foster's hands, they did. Great receiver out of the backfield. James Wilder Jr. has that skill set.
Oh, yes.
I understand the offensive line is maybe not as stable as others in the CFL right now, but Sir Vincent Rogers, Kyle Saxelid's been in this league a long time. David Beard at center, Matt O'Donnell, maybe one of the most physically imposing and consistent.
6'11", man.
Yeah. Offensive linemen and a Canadian to boot in the CFL today. They have pieces there that I think things will work on offense. Shai Ross, the Winnipeg native, University of Manitoba product. If you remember him, he had the viral video of doing the flip and dunking the Oreo cookie in the milk midair, hanging upside down. Absolute burner speed, clearly athletic. You mix him with Darrell Walker and Greg Ellingson and Edwards. They have some pieces there that they can change things up. They can offer a lot of different things to kind of, try to negate this Blue Bombers defense. It's led by a great pass rush. How do you stop a great pass rush? You run the football. You keep a defense not knowing where you're going.
Well, you run it, Darren, or you also run a lot of screens and a lot of draws, and you try and get that rush up here. I mean, everybody finds success, is basically you got to make what they're trying to do against them, work against them. As you mentioned, when you got Jackson and Jefferson coming at you and Adam Bighill, and they line up everybody in line of scrimmage, and now they're doing some great things where they put, Adam Bighill, you saw get the interception against Saskatchewan, where he dropped a safety. All he did was rotate. But
when do you expect to see Adam Bighill 35 yards off the line of scrimmage?
That's what happens. So a lot of times quarterbacks get caught up and they look at Adam, there's number four. They don't realize he's going back. He drops, another guy comes up. They just replace each other. They get fixated on the number rather than the position.
Right. Well, you see that, Chris, when you were in this league, I'm sure they did what they do today, and that the scout team comes out, they put on the penny with the, the numbers on them, and like, okay, there's Adam Bighill, there's Willie Jefferson, there's Jackson Jeffcoat, there's Jonathan Kongbo, there's Brandon Alexander. Is he coming down to the right side? Is he dropping back? What are they doing? They study that, and with a rookie quarterback in Taylor Cornelius, that's where Winnipeg's versatility and changing up personnel packages, alignments, all of that is really going to come into their favor. Do you think this game is going to be as lopsided as the odds makers believe? This game opened as 6-point Blue Bombers favorites.
Okay.
It dropped to 4.
It
dropped to 4, and then since the Trevor Harris injury announcement, back up to 7.
6. Oh, really? Okay.
So,
well, I think that's a huge thing. Come on, Darren. When you think about it, you got a guy that's leading the league in passing percentage. He's very good. Had an off week, there's no doubt, last game against Calgary. But having said that, you know what he can do. He's had good games against the Bombers as well, right? So that's a big piece of your offense that's gone, and that's always your key. It's, it's the straw that stirs the drink. So now you got a rookie quarterback in there. Yes, he's going to have to do a great job. I think they're going to be doing a lot of get rid of the ball quickly and run the football. But, I mean, I don't think that, I know he's got an arm. They said he threw a ball 70 yards just like nothing, to an Edwards. I guess Ernest Edwards was doing it in practice. But I'm kind of curious because I remember what happened when we were playing Calgary years ago when Bo Levi had his first ever start as a rookie. And it was against the Bombers, and he ended up throwing for 3 touchdowns and beat the Bombers. But it was in Calgary, too. So, hey, but this is a different defense. This is a different animal. And you talked about a defense, and I'll talk about one thing. The other thing is the offense. I mean, I said this before. I thought that Cody Fajardo and Zach were the front runners for the MOP. I really don't know how they're not looking at Zach right now.
No question.
He is so bloody efficient with this ball. He knows exactly where he wants to go. He leads the league in ball, passes over 30 yards. He's got 12. He's got and Kenny Lawler, who's really coming to his own. And I remember you picked him in our first broadcast on Bonfire. You said that you thought he might be a star. And I think your prediction is going to come true because he really is playing lights out. Another great catch last week for a touchdown. He's got 4 of those plus 30-yard catches. So this offense, and just think about this. I looked at the stats from last year. Andrew Harris was like the second leading receiver on this team.
Because Matt Nichols would check down to him 8 times a game.
Well, now we go deep. Now we're a big play team. We go for chunks. Where last year, right? And then you wonder about, you see him with 5 or 6 catches right now. Very surprising, but just tells me that when they get him more involved, not only running, because he's run for over 80-plus yards in the first 3 games he's played here.
Right.
The fact is, if you get him catching the ball out of the backfield again, it's a dual threat. It makes you that much stronger.
I see that as a dynamic that they can bring in if needed. But right now, with a 34-year-old Andrew Harris, run him, and that's it. You don't got to give him those extra 8, 10, 12 touches a game in the pass game as well. I'm glad you mentioned Kenny Lawler in relation to the conversation about Zach Collaros being amongst the CFL MOP candidates as we're kind of at that 1/3 portion of this CFL season, Chris, because I asked Kenny Lawler if people are sleeping on his quarterback.
Are people maybe sleeping on Zach Collaros as an MOP candidate in the CFL?
They sleep, man. My dog gonna wake them up, man. My dog gonna go ahead. Wake them up, Zach. Yes, sir. They sleep. They gonna know. They gonna know. He's an MOP. Man of the damn year. Let's go.
It's not just Kenny Lawler, Chris, and quite a reaction there from him, but it's Nic Demski, who absolutely exploded in the Banjo Bowl, should have had 2 touchdowns. That's in his opinion and mine. But, I tweeted during the game, not everybody got the reference. There is no contract dispute between Nic Demski and the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. I simply tweeted, pay Nic Demski his money because he's worth every penny he gets and more. That next contract will be lucrative for him. He's never been a 1,000-yard receiver. Jeff Hamilton of the Winnipeg Free Press wrote about it this week. He's been he's often regarded as a star in this league, but he doesn't have those big gaudy numbers. It's his versatility. He can run. He can catch. He can be a tailback. He can return kicks. He's just that good of a player. And I do want to go to a clip right now of Blue Bombers defensive backs coach Jordan Younger, who spoke on Nic Demski, a player he doesn't coach directly, but he has seen firsthand.
I can't be complimentary enough of Nic Demski. While he doesn't necessarily have the gaudy numbers that some of the receivers around the league put up, his versatility makes our offense more dynamic, right? And that skill set, right, makes it easier for other people to make plays in our offense, right? So that value is priceless, right? And the fact that you don't necessarily know how it makes it easier every time, but you do see that our offense opens up when he's on the field, that teams key in on other guys, less when Dempsky's on the field. So his skill set, his ability to make big plays, like that's one other thing, is that every game he consistently finds a way, just about every single game, to make a big play or impact play. So, teams know it's coming, right? They obviously, put him on the list of guys that are capable of making explosion plays, and yet he's still able to do it week in and week out. So the combination of his versatility and the fact that he finds a way to impact the game every time he's on the field makes him immensely valuable.
That's some serious praise right there from the Blue Bombers defensive backs coach, Chris, in Jordan Younger. Dempsky, Lawler, they're amongst the league's best right now, but I don't know if they would be if they didn't have Zach Collaros throwing them the football.
Well, I agree 100%. Now, one thing I want to touch about, you said about Dempsky, and Dempsky is my X factor. Every team has an X factor guy. Could be a returner. Like if you look what Lucky Whitehead's doing in BC with a new home, he's blowing up the league out there, man. Great job. Big 119-yard missed field goal last week for a touchdown. But Nic Demski's that same kind of guy. As you say, not the gaudiest of stats, but 5 for 134, shoestring tackle that prevented a touchdown. Always big plays. And why? Because he's so dang smart. He knows all the positions. He reads defenses. He knows how to break away from coverage. I'm just so impressed with this old Park boy. I did a little thing on at the home game last week at halftime, talked about it on a Jumbotron. And the first thing I said was, hey, I agree 100%. I said, Nic Demski, he's the real deal, brother.
No question. One of my favorite players to watch. I call him the Canadian Swiss Army knife because he really can be used in so many different ways. We should talk about the kicker, but before we do, be sure to hit like and subscribe. Hit us up in the comments. We will always respond. Appreciate the support here on Bonfire Sports. Check out the website, BonfireSports.ca. You got the YouTube page. You're going to get everything you need right here. Ali Mourtada was announced as a signing of the Winnipeg Blue Bombers on August 30th, Chris. He joined practice this week after 7 days of quarantine, and here he is, suiting up pretty much immediately. He's expected to handle field goals while rookie Canadian Marc Liegghio will handle punting duties as he had all year. Was this move necessary in your mind, or is it a little bit early to be judging the rookie?
You know what? I think they're very fortunate they're 5-1. If this team wasn't playing so well defensively and offensively, I think we'd be talking a different animal right now.
Couldn't agree more.
The fact is, it was 1 for 4. He missed 2 converts. He's 5 of 8 for, he just is so inconsistent. And I do appreciate O'Shea. O'Shea takes a player's personality and tries to comfort him. And, he's not harsh. I remember coaches, they just say, you miss a couple. You talk about any other league. You miss that many, you're never going to get another paycheck. You're gone. They're giving you an apple and a roadmap.
You got one job. You got one job.
Right. Well, he kicked 3 field goals in 1 day. He got player of the week or whatever. That's his job. Don't pee me off. Anyway, I just get it. But I think Ali Mourtada, I'm looking for him. I know he's a kicker. He's been around a lot of leagues. He's trying to find a home. He's a natural kicker. You mentioned earlier before we came on the air today that you watched him and he looks just like a kicker, great form, and he can punt. So it'll be interesting to see if he kicks as well as he does and as well as they expect him to do in the field goal and the converts and that stuff, whether he will take or even get a crack at punting during this game, depending on the game goes. If they blow this and, they get a big score up, you're probably going to see, Sean McGuire get some reps, and you're probably going to see, Ali Mourtada try a couple punts. Yeah,
you might. I'm a little bit more hesitant to say the Blue Bombers would do that. I think punting in the CFL is a lot. It's a bit of a different animal, right? Like Ali Mourtada is coming from the Indoor Football League. He's a Massachusetts native. He went to Pace University. He immigrated to the United States from Civil War-torn Sierra Leone at the age of 4. He doesn't know too much about that part of his life because he was so young. But since coming to the United States, he has been an American kicker. And then at pro level has been an indoor kicker. Yep. So like the uprights are like this. Yeah. And the field is much shorter. As far as punting, I'm sure he can punt. but can he do it effectively and efficiently? Can he put it where it needs to go? Marc Liegghio has done a pretty good job. He's not rated amongst the best punters in the league. But here's the thing. Marshall Ferguson pointed this out, our good friend, this week. Of the 9 top special teams tacklers in the entire CFL, of the top 9, 5 are Blue Bombers. So do you need to change the punting situation right now? It's working well enough because this Blue Bombers offense is confident enough to punt it and play the field position game because Mike Miller's going to go down there and blow a guy up and, not get any recognition for it with a player of the week honor, even though he puts up, 5 tackles in a game. Don't get me started.
No, he's got over 200 now, which is fantastic. I mean, and most in CFL history.
Goes.
He's number 1 all time. The biggest thing is, and I'm going to give Marc Liegghio a little credit on this one. He may not be punting for huge. I think he's got a 43-point-something yard average. But the nice thing is, he corner kicks very well.
Right.
And when you kick a corner, you cut half that field down. Your covered team can get a better job of spacing out and keeping him corralled. And that's why our cover team does such a good job. You mentioned Mike Miller. You've got all these other guys like Nick Hallett. You've got Theodric Hansen. As you mentioned, there's like 5 in the top 10.
Yeah.
It's and that's when you start looking at you're going, oh my God, look at this defense, man. They're number 1. Oh, look at this offense. They're not bad either.
And how about
special teams? But
how
no
about
return game yet.
Winnipeg just being a global football player factory? Les Maruo from Japan is a fantastic special teams player. He played in the NCAA. He's got some pedigree there, no doubt, but he's racking up special teams tackles. He's making things happen there. Tanner Cadwallader, a Canadian out of U Sports and a 2021 draft pick. Kevin Brown, CFL veteran and American, but he's on all the special teams. That said, I didn't think he played particularly well on special teams in the Banjo Bowl, but I digress. They do have a lot of guys that are making things happen on special teams. Should Ali Mourtada be given a bit of a leash? What if he misses a couple?
Oh, that'd be a nightmare. I mean, that's not what there's so much pressure on these guys, obviously, to come in, especially on your first game. Now you've gone through quarantine, you're ready to kick, and you get your opportunity. This is a guy, like you say, I think he's 31. He's trying to find a home. So I fully anticipate a kick well, but you're right. That would be a nightmare of all nightmares to go out there and shank one or miss him, or hit the post. I mean, I don't want that to happen to the young man. I mean, I'm not trying to be against Marc Liegghio, but I'm trying, you had your opportunity. That was your shot. Let's give another guy a shot, because if you get down and the game starts getting into the crunch time, I need that kicker. We got spoiled with Justin Medlock. And so now we need to make sure that whoever takes that spot, if they get that sorted out and Ali Mourtada turns out to be the key, the missing piece, I don't know who's going to beat the Bombers, to be honest with you.
No, as of right now, it's the Blue Bombers and then the rest of the CFL. And here's the thing. Last thought on Marc Liegghio from me. Nobody's closing the book on this kid. He is a green football player. It's his first year in pro football. And he comes into training camp. You're the only guy. You're punting. You're kicking off. You're doing it all. No kidding. The pressure maybe got to him. Give him some time. Let him develop. He has a huge leg. He was extremely efficient as a field goal kicker at Western University in U Sports, in Canadian University football. He was comfortable there. Maybe he's not quite comfortable in the pros. There's no reason to just look past him. It's not working right now. No doubt about that. Bring in Ali Mourtada. He's a 31-year-old. Mourtada has done it for a long time. Get a guy that's comfortable anywhere he goes to kick field goals. Let Marc Liegghio relax. Let him punt. Let him dress. Let him be on the team because he's valuable there. But field goals, that can come in time. 2022, 2024, 2026. Marc Liegghio won't even be halfway through his potential CFL career.
Oh, you must have a crystal ball out there.
I'm just saying, patience. They can be patient with him.
Yeah. Well,
that's all I'm saying.
You have the same philosophy as Coach O'Shea. That's exactly his philosophy. He sticks up for the guy. He defends him. He says, listen, he's young. He was a proficient kicker, as you mentioned, at Western U. He's just one of those guys that needs a little time to blossom, to develop. But the problem is you're professional now, and you're expected to be doing the job now. They don't pay you today so you can produce tomorrow. So, I mean, I agree with you to a point. And I know he's a good punter. He's playing. I think he's doing a really good job punting the ball. I'm just curious, will he be doing the kickoffs? Because he does a pretty good job on kickoffs as well. But maybe they'll put Mourtada and him in the kickoffs as well. A lot of
all I'm saying is don't crucify the guy yet.
Oh no,
that's all I'm saying. Yeah.
Right.
No, I know you're not. A lot of people out there have been. They're like, get him off the team. He doesn't deserve his own boots, that sort of thing.
Darrin. You know what it's like, though. When you start winning, people look for any crack in the armor.
Well,
and that's the only crack in the Bomber armor right now.
It
special teams.
It is.
I mean,
well,
we could talk about the return game. Where's the return game?
Sure.
Charles Nelson's averaging 8 yards a return. Come on, boys. Now, I know that O'Shea sticks up for those guys as well.
Yep.
They're all defenders. They're, defensive minded. It takes a while to develop. I mean, it seems like other teams are doing a pretty good job returning the ball. But having said that, all you need is one and you're out of the funk, right? So,
well, there's a reason Janarian Grant took this job midway through the 2019 season and ran with it. Pardon the on-the-nose pun. But it happened, and he returned 2 touchdowns like almost immediately. He is all-star caliber kick returner. He's injured early in the season, is on the 6-game injured list, is not around Blue Bombers practice, so seemingly it's a pretty bad injury. No update from Mike O'Shea there. Charles Nelson beat out Lucky Whitehead for the kick returning job in 2019 initially. Is it on him? Is it on the blocking schemes? Mike O'Shea says one thing: we need to see more pictures. Well, does that mean he needs his team to be a sharper study? Does that mean his team needs more work? Or is it on one guy? I think it's a bit of a mystery, but I'll say this, Chris.
Combination.
The Blue Bombers work on special teams every single day in practice. It's not something they're just, crossing their fingers and hoping gets better.
No. It's such a crucial part of the game. I mean, they always say if you win 2 to 3 fastest, offense, defense, special teams, you win 2 to 3, you usually got a good opportunity to come out with a victory on that game. So, I mean, they realize how important it is. I mean, they're doing a great job on cover. You mentioned earlier 5 of the top 10 on tackles, led by obviously the machine, Mike Miller. I actually tried to get a T-shirt. I actually phoned Brad Fogg,
the GOAT
guy, and I said, "Can I get a GOAT T-shirt?" And it was met with a resounding no. We don't have yours. No, they don't have that. You know why? They're special. They're special.
They are. Yep. Well, the coaches where I coach the GOAT and the players where I play with the GOAT, right? And the golden GOAT with the number 24 in the middle. But this Blue Bombers team, that camaraderie that they have in that locker room, it's something kind of sacred and something they really cherish inside that room. Their little acronyms that they have, FIFO. Fit in or you fill in the rest. That's those sorts of things I think are kind of sacred inside that locker room, even from Mike O'Shea. Like Mike O'Shea's wearing the GOAT T-shirt too, but he lets those guys in the locker room do their thing. Leaders lead. Everybody kind of, is that rare? Did you ever have a locker room like that, Chris?
I'm sure we did, but I know that Cal would come in once in a while. He never spent a lot of time in the locker room either. Except for after the game, he'd come and drink with the O-line. We have a couple beers in the back. That was a great time because you get to know the coach on a personal level, not only as a coach, but as a person, as a human being. So I enjoyed those times, especially when you're getting older. Like the younger guys weren't, it was just the old guys, Miles Gurrell, myself, Stan, a bunch of guys, Blackie. We'd all be sitting around there and he'd have a couple, and he'd talk about the game. And, but again, if we were winning, it was great. If we're losing, we're hightailing it out of there. But yeah, I think it is. I mean, I want to tell you one thing that I thought was very interesting. I was listening to Aaron Grimes, the halfback for the Edmonton Elks.
Yep.
And they were asking about what he thought about Winnipeg. He said, those guys love to play with each other. They have a fellowship on that team, much like he says they do on defense. Because he was talking about how, we love to play with each other. We hang with each other all the time. And he goes, right to Winnipeg, goes, that's just like Winnipeg. Winnipeg does the same thing. They want to play for each other, and that's why they're so good. They got that chemistry, right? And I told you before, talent wins games. Teamwork wins championships, and that's chemistry. So that's what I like, man. So
well put.
That's my quote.
Now, speaking of players wanting to play here in Winnipeg, the Blue Bombers inquired about a recent NFL cut. He did not sign with Winnipeg, nor did he sign with his former team in the Saskatchewan Roughriders. Linebacker Derrick Moncrief signed
Huge.
huge contract with the Edmonton Elks. He will start at the dime, the strong side linebacker spot. This is an extremely high caliber player. CFL All-Star in 2019. Yeah, you said it. Immediate upgrade to this defense.
And actually it was interesting because Jamie Elizondo, the head coach, talked about him and said, one of the things he fit right in. First day, saw him in the hole making a play. He goes, oh my God, that guy, that's what we need in this team. He's this will be his first game. He was with, I think, the Las Vegas Raiders. Listen, this guy can play football. There's no, but he signed a contract. It was a bidding war where Saskatchewan couldn't get into it. We couldn't get into it. And Edmonton made him the highest paid per game linebacker in the CFL right now, which I'm sure is driving the hell out of Adam Bighill, because you know what, the way Adam's playing, he should be the highest. But that's what your next contract's for.
Exactly. And you know what, if it's Adam Bighill or Willie Jefferson, whoever, if you're worried about a paycheck right now in a pandemic shortened season, and you're on the best team in the league by head and shoulders, you're going to come home with hardware. Like, don't worry about it. You're going to get those playoff bonus checks. You're going to have a nice piece of jewelry if you're able to get the job done in Hamilton in December. Mike O'Shea, I just want to go to Mike O'Shea. I asked him about Derrick Moncrief and the impact that he could have.
Yeah, he's been an all-star at that spot, so we'll know where he is. On every play you have to account for him, because he could be coming off the edge, or he could be dropping deep, or he could be covering man-to-man. So we'll definitely know where he is. He's a very good player. So like all good players, you're on your opposition, your team's aware of what they bring to the game and some of the nuances they bring, for sure.
Is it a bit of an unknown of how a player can be used when they're new to a system or new to a team, again, at a position like the dime that is used so many different ways?
The system is really the system, but if the player, the new addition, has a certain skill set that is more remarkable than another guy, then obviously you would believe that they would utilize that skill set. And I don't know that it would be too hard to figure that out. The specific, the lines on the page on where he comes from or where he drops to might be a little different, but you would certainly have more than a hunch on how they would use a guy if he had a particular attribute that was remarkable.
Thanks, Mike. Appreciate it.
Yep.
You know what, DB, I got to tell you one thing, going back to that conversation. I remember Cal Murphy said the same thing to us. You know what? We may not be able to pay you a top dollar, but I guarantee the teams we put you on, and we always were in the playoffs, you're going to get playoff money and a chance to go to the Holy Grail, the Grey Cup game, where you can make a lot of money. So we went to the Cup 5 times. Not bad. And I think it was a 7 or 8 year span. So we never missed the playoffs. And that's crazy. For 16 years I played, we never missed the playoffs. That was a crazy thing too. So, major little extra money. We don't make the money the guys play, but the TV contract's way better now. I don't begrudge these guys. I'm happy for them because it's a tough life.
No question, right? And for a lot of them, they're away from home. Adam Bighill is from the U.S. Jackson Jeffcoat, Willie Jefferson, they're from Texas. Like, you're away from home. You got to pay for room and board and food for your family. The Jeffersons, Holly and their little one came up recently, and they're going to spend the rest of the season here in Winnipeg. You got to give them transportation. You got to give them a place to stay and all those things to take care of your family. The reality is, though, Chris, we're starting to see it more often in pro sports right now, and that's some guys taking a little bit less money so you can spread it around a little bit. We saw Adam Bighill do it. Reportedly, a lot of other players on this Blue Bombers team did it as well. They wanted to keep the band together because one thing, money comes and goes. One thing you can't take away is championships and a dynasty. That could be the case. Like, the Bombers won the Grey Cup a year and a half ago, nearly 2 years ago. And they're looking right now like they're going to roll to another one because nobody can really hold a candle to this team.
But there's another thing too. You mentioned, and I got to contradict you a little bit here. The new era of football in the CFL now is they'll pay you so much money, X amount, but then they give you signing bonus. But they also do one thing, and they never did, a very, very, very rare when I played. That's they give you a housing allowance. Right. So a lot of times they'll give you 60, whatever it costs you to stay. So they pay for your housing because it doesn't work against the cap. So that helps them. So that's
it's taxed
that's a big
differently
thing for
too.
players.
It's
Oh, absolutely. I mean,
Yep.
they got to pay money here, and if they go back to States, they got to pay money again. So I mean, it's a tough world. And then when you figure you're getting, I mean, and I don't know if any guys in Winnipeg, I can't speak for CFL, are getting paid in American money. Because that dollar is, it's not the greatest over there. So you're actually losing whatever 25, 30% as soon as you convert. So
right.
Yeah, it's a tough wheel.
I know of a player, I won't name them, but I know of a player who signed with Toronto a few years ago. Very well-known player in the CFL, high salary individual. His housing allowance in Toronto, Chris, $60,000,
Oh, yeah.
more than the league minimum at the time for the majority of his teammates. He was making $60K in housing allowance, and probably needed it living in Toronto too, right?
Oh, yeah,
You can't get $1,000 apartment there.
No, that's crazy. I mean, that's the thing. I mean, that's where salaries, and that's where guys in the CFLPA used to say, hey, we want to have full disclosure on salaries. Not so I could say what player A was getting compared to player B, but player A may live in Vancouver and player B may live in Toronto. Those are two high costing places to live, probably two of the highest, versus Winnipeg or Saskatchewan, right, where it's not as expensive. So you got to take those things into consideration. And that's, as you mentioned, the $60,000 housing allowance, and like you say, that probably is what it costs, if the guy's staying year round or, I mean, that's it. It just, I mean, I know people live in Toronto and the amount of money they have to pay for rent is ridiculous.
My sister moved from Toronto to the United States for 5 years. When she came back, they couldn't afford the house that they sold just 5 years earlier. So anyway, we'll digress.
Yeah.
We'll get back to this game and real estate, right?
We'll start a real estate show now.
There's probably a market out there. Maybe a realtor out there wants to sponsor us. Give us a shout.
There you go, buddy.
We'll do that. So the Bombers sitting at 5-1, and Edmonton definitely struggling, allowing 7 sacks against and not being able to sweep that season series with the Calgary Stampeders, suffering a loss, falling to 2-3. We mentioned Derrick Moncrief coming back. If we stick with the defense, Kwaku Boateng has a leg injury. He will not be in the lineup. If there's been one positional group discussed amongst the strongest on this Edmonton Elks team in 2021, Chris, it's been the defensive line. Matthew Betts, Jake Serezna, Mike Moore, and Kwaku Boateng. You remove Kwaku Boateng, this nasty, snarly, physical Blue Bombers offensive line has one less impact player to worry about.
Well, they got Costigan playing in there, Thomas, and he's a new guy, first-year player. They've also got Christian Rector. He's a first-year player. They got some players that get after the ball. I mean, I've always been impressed with Jake's Serezna. I mean, I thought he's good. Matthew Betts, remember, he had a trial with the Chicago Bears. And we thought, this kid, like when you watched him play, I believe he played Laval.
He did.
And, he was monster out there. Haven't seen anything of that yet. I know he's got good speed off the outside. I haven't seen him really make an impact yet. But mind you, to be fair to him, I've only watched a couple games. I haven't really focused on number 9, so it'll be interesting.
He popped out to me in their game against the BC Lions. And Serezna coming off that one side. Either way, very athletic player. Mike Moore getting conversation, like obviously taking over from Armando Sewell on the interior of that defensive line. He was a pillar there for a long time. Sewell was, now with the Montreal Alouettes. Mike Moore in that conversation of being an all-star at defensive tackle. He is just a monster there. Drew Desjardins, Michael Couture, Pat Neufeld, they'll have their hands full with 96 Moore on Saturday.
Well, and I think if you're Edmonton, their defense is playing very well. They're number 1 against the pass. They're number 1 against pass completion percentage. They've only given up 3. This is, I thought, an interesting stat. They've only given up 3 passes over 30 yards. And the Bombers are the number 1 in going 30 yards or deeper. So great matchup going to go between, our offensive coordinator, Buck Pierce, and Noel Thorpe, their defensive coordinator for Edmonton. I know that he was not happy with happened. I mean, obviously the Edmonton offense really crapped the bed, if I can use that term, against Calgary in their second game, and they left the defense on the field way too long. And yet the defense kept them, almost tried to keep them in the game. But eventually, you're just going to be out there for too many plays, and big things are going to happen. So I watch for the Edmonton. Obviously, they're going to try and stuff the run, as they always do. Every team wants to stop Andrew Harris, or whoever's running that football. I'm still kind of curious, and I'm going to throw it out there. I know Johnny Augustine's on special teams, but I'm surprised he's not getting any cracks at running the football.
Like none.
I mean, I'm just surprised by that, because when he played in 2 games in 2019, a very productive runner. So I mean, I don't know. That's a question for everybody, I guess.
Something I will mention is 2 rookies in the linebacking core for the Edmonton Elks. Niles Morgan and Keyshawn Barrera. So 2 true rookies manning the middle there. Derrick Moncrief obviously helps playing that dime back spot. But then you look at the defensive backfield, and in my opinion, Chris, one of the highest caliber and veteran defensive back groups in the entire CFL. People will recognize these names: Jonathan Rose, Jonathan Mincy, Trumaine Washington, the extremely talented Aaron Grimes, and then the Canadian Jordan Hoover, who's manned safety in Edmonton for the last couple years, kind of in and out, but now has locked down that starting job. But you mentioned Grimes and Rose and Mincy and Washington. You add in Derrick Moncrief, who will be handling things near the line of scrimmage as a defensive back. Wow, that is an extremely veteran group. Maybe that's why they can get away with 2 first-year linebackers in Morgan and Barrera.
Well, it's interesting too. I mean, this is a team, when you look at the stats and you see what they've done, number 1 net against net offense, number 1 yards per play. They got a good defense. Yet they've only created 2 turnovers, which really surprised me. I mean, they got their first interception last week by Trumaine Washington for a touchdown, and they're hoping that broke the door open, and they're going to, obviously have more to follow now. But having said that, I'm surprised at this. I know they dropped a few balls too. They had opportunities to catch them. So I'm looking forward. This is why I like the matchup. I really like this matchup because I like their defense and I like our offense.
See, I can tell,
and
Chris.
I like the fact,
go ahead.
Yeah, I think, and that's what I think. I think we're a team that's really changed its identity. We run the ball still a lot, but having said that, I love the fact that we attack deep now. We're not nickel diming. We got so used to Matt Nichols. Sorry, little play on the nickel, but whatever. We used to do that all the time, right? And we'd go, come on, man, throw the ball over 10 yards, right? Well, now Zach Collaros is going deep a lot.
Well, they went from Matt Nichols to Collaros dropping dimes. Those deep balls he's throwing to Lawler, to Bailey, to Dempsky, like absolutely on the money. We've been talking about it for weeks now. When you have Andrew Harris, when you have that underneath passing game, the crossing routes, that sort of thing, the misdirection, the motion in the backfield, the jet sweeps, Buck Pierce learned well from Paul Appolise. The same way Matt Nichols would take those 2 or 3 shots deep downfield in a game, so too is Zach Collaros, but his accuracy is so much greater. That makes this offense so much more dangerous.
I remember when you're going deep, you have to have an O-line to give you that time.
Of course.
You can't just do it. You're not usually taking a 3-drop step and, boom, 3-step drop and throwing a ball. You're sitting back there, you're going through your research progression, right? And he's finding guys. Now, there's times he scrambles. We talked about that in all our broadcasts, that he's got the escapability, always looking downfield. Eyes are always looking downfield, looking for somebody to come open. But they have such a veteran group that, as you see, the receivers understand when he's in a little under duress, and they adapt. They change their routes. They look for the opening. That's what you get out of a veteran group they have here right now. This is like I said, there's not many cracks. If we get Ali Mourtada to kick some field goals and become consistent in that department, wow. I like I said, this team is barring the one ugly injuries, knock on wood, because that's the only thing that's going to hurt this team.
No question. Let's give the last word before we get to your keys to the game here on Game Day Winnipeg, Chris, to somebody who, as we mentioned earlier, is beginning to be a very strong candidate for CFL MOP. Anytime you're the quarterback of the best team in the league, you're going to be in that conversation. Touchdown to interception ratio is phenomenal, amongst the league leaders in yards. And I understand he hasn't had a bye week yet, but the numbers look really good for Zach Collaros.
How would you assess your play to this point?
I think I've, performed well enough for us to win games. I think as a unit and myself individually, I'm getting better every week at seeing the pictures and understanding the game plan and, what we're trying to attack and when we're trying to attack it. And just kind of, again, understanding the rhythm of the game and the moments in the game, situational football, and just kind of getting back in the swing of things. I like to say that I've gotten better each week, and I think as a unit we have too. The scrambling thing is just, there's been some situations this year where we've gotten some calls where the defenses are back to me, and just so happens Yoshi washes down a defensive end, and kind of splits like the Red Sea, and you get out there on the edge, and I'm always looking to throw the ball first, but there's been a couple of moments where I've been able to gain some yards for us and pick up some first down. So it's nothing that you really go into a season saying like, hey, I need to do X, Y, or Z. But anytime you can pick up a first down or two in a game, it really helps the offense. Again, stay on the football field and get to other calls in our game plan that we want to get to.
I want to ask you about Nic Demski. What makes him, a great player beyond the numbers?
I think it's just his overall understanding of the Canadian game and what we're trying to do offensively, and his understanding of defenses and what they're trying to do defensively to take away certain things. There's probably 5 to 10 plays that we could find, over the last 2 seasons where he's not even getting the football, but he knows who's supposed to be getting the football, and he's getting that guy even more open. So that's just an example of him understanding what the defense is doing and what we're trying to do, and doing the right thing for his teammate, right? So having a guy like that, especially at the positions that are waggling and moving around a lot, a guy who understands the game is just music to a quarterback's ears. Especially if you could get on the same page with him, which I think, when I first met him here, whenever that was in 19, really easy to communicate with and talk ball with, and it's a process. We're going to hopefully continue to get better, but he's great to work with every day.
Just on that topic of numbers, obviously you played this game for a long time. Have you ever had like a certain point, like a certain amount of yards you considered a good game, and has that changed as you throughout your career from worrying less about numbers per se than?
Yeah, I think when you're younger, you worry more about those kind of things. I can remember reading an art, like a Sports Illustrated article, 5-6 years ago. It was the Harbaugh brothers, talking to their dad about, how they measured success at the quarterback position. And I think Jim Harbaugh was talking about his time at Michigan. And long story short, he would always measure success when he was a freshman or sophomore with how many touchdowns did I throw, how many completions did I have, blah, 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 those kind of things that are, tangible things that people could see. But, as he got older and learned more, it was, how was my process? Did I get the guys lined up? Were my cadences right? Those different little things that, ultimately, get us in the right situation. So then we can, garner some statistics, but am I doing the right things to get us in the right situation to win football games? And I remember reading that, really struck me, and kind of started looking at the game a little bit differently. I don't know if it's changed really the way I've played, but it's definitely, helped me really focus on those little tiny details and why they matter. Those kind of things. Yeah, Creek's a great player, so we'll have to be ready for, however they decide to utilize him. He's a great blitzer and great cover guy, so we'll have to be, ready to adjust with whatever that is. I think, up front, it really is where it really starts there in Edmonton, and they got a really great front four. They get after the passer. They're very, very physical, so we'll have our hands full there. I think on the back end, including the backers, they do a really good job of route reading. And when they're asked to play man covers, they do a great job of that. So, same thing every week. We're going to have to be able to see the pictures and execute, but, they're a very, very good opponent.
Well, there you have it, Chris. I don't think it's any surprise that Zach Collaros is, amongst that conversation for MOP in the CFL in 2021. What maybe is surprising is how fluid he looks, how dynamic and athletic he looks. It's been a real treat to watch Zach Collaros. I said this in training camp. I don't remember the last time the Bombers had a quarterback this dangerous. Maybe Kahari Jones, maybe Buck Pierce, maybe even going back to Matt Dunnigan, somebody you remember. Does Zach Collaros remind you of that caliber of quarterback? Some of the best you played with?
It's funny because I don't think Zach is like a Matt Dunnigan, because they Matt Dunnigan was a bull in a china shop. He'd run over people, right? I think he reminds me more of another guy that's very cerebral, and that's Tom Clements. That's who he reminds me of. A guy that understands the game so well, can go in there and make changes, call a play audible, understands it, knows how to read the defense pre-snap and post-snap. So that's who I make the comparison to. Yeah,
I'm not even comparing Zach Collaros directly to any other players. Yeah, and I'm glad you did that, because you're much more able to do that than I. I just don't know if there's been a caliber of quarterback as high as Zach Collaros here in Winnipeg since maybe Kahari Jones, maybe Buck Pierce. that conversation is an interesting one.
You could beat that to death all day, because you know what? It's all about the surrounding cast as well, right?
Sure.
I mean, you could have a great guy and have a team like they got loaded right now. Look at this. Naaman Roosevelt can't get in the lineup. Where's he going to play him? He can't play him. We got nowhere to put him. Who are you going to take out? They're clicking on all cylinders. So leave it.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, Chris, let's get into your keys to the game here on Bonfire Sports and Game Day Winnipeg. The Elks host the Bombers, the first of 3 meetings over Winnipeg's next 4 games over just a month span.
Well, I know one thing. First off, before I get to my keys, and that is that the Bombers want to go into that bye, because it's so much nicer to go into bye week with a victory.
Yes.
They'll be 6-1 for the first time in a long time. I think the last time I was 6-1 was 1984, the year we won the cup. So stick that in your craw. Anyway, offensive key. I think, hey, listen, continue to play smash mouth football. I want to see Andrew Harris utilized more, not as a running back, but as a receiver out of the backfield. And I tell you what, love the fact they're making big plays as they lead the league. I mentioned earlier, 12 passes over 30-plus yards. Kenny Lawler leading with 4. Defense, hey, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. They're doing a great job getting after him. Now you're going after a wide-eyed rookie, first ever start in the CFL. You know what? I think pressure's going to get to him right now. Create some more turnovers. You're number 1 in the league in turnovers, 17. You got 35 points off, and make him pay. And special teams, I just want to know, is Ali Mourtada, is he the real deal? That's what I want to know. And let's get some returns. Maybe I'll see that.
Yeah.
But more so the kicking game. That's what I'm worried about.
Yeah, absolutely. Well
that,
said.
my friends, is what I'd say.
Well, Chris, good show today. And despite our, pivot to a little bit of economics and Canadian financial issues and real estate, this was a good show.
It is nice. And I guess you have to go see somebody financially. I guess Adam Big Hill's that investor now. I'll give him a little plug.
Yeah.
Even though he's not taking care of my money. All my exes take care of that.
On that note, Chris, appreciate the time as always. We'll be back next week. And, enjoy your bye.
No, this is the last time. I'll see you in 2 weeks, my brother.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Enjoy your bye.
Okay.
So maybe clean the wax out of your ears on the bye week.
Hey, I didn't have a problem getting that stupid show going. You did, idiot.
Headphones, eh?
Oh, I know. Okay, buddy. Talk to you later.
Yeah, we'll talk to you soon, buddy.
Amigos.